We start with breaking news from the Cavaliers tonight. Star guard James Harden arrested after an early incident.
In a shocking, headline-making story that has left basketball fans around the world in disbelief, reports claim NBA superstar James Harden has found himself at the center of a dramatic downfall unlike anything in sports history. From roaring arenas and championship dreams to a sudden storm of controversy, his name now echoes in a narrative few could have imagined, raising one burning question: how did it all go so wrong? What really happened behind the headlines? And could it change the legacy of one of the NBA's biggest stars forever? Let's find out. The mugshot nobody expected to see. For more than 15 years, James Harden stood as one of the most exciting and unforgettable stars the basketball world had ever seen. From the moment he entered the league, he was different. Fans didn't just watch him play, they expected something special every time he stepped on the court. He became known as the Beard, a nickname that matched his bold style and larger-than-life presence. But it wasn't just the look that made him famous, it was the way he played the game. Smooth, patient, and almost unstoppable when he got into rhythm. Defenders knew what was coming, yet most of the time, they still couldn't stop it. Harden was the kind of player who could take over a game in minutes. A quiet night could suddenly turn into a 40-point performance. And on his best nights, he pushed even further, scoring 50 or more while making it look almost effortless. Year after year, he delivered performances that kept fans glued to their screens and sold out arenas wherever he went. His talent didn't just bring highlights, it brought history. He became an MVP, a scoring champion, and one of the most feared offensive players in modern basketball. For many fans, he wasn't just a star, he was a guarantee. If James Harden were playing, something memorable would happen. That is exactly why everything changed in a single morning. One Saturday, while most people were still asleep, reports began to surface that James Harden had been taken into custody by the Houston Police Department. At first, many fans thought it was fake news. Social media reacts quickly, and rumors spread even faster. But as more reports came in, the reality started to settle in. The idea of Harden being connected to a police arrest didn't match the image people had built over the years. This was the same player who had dominated the league, traveled across franchises as a superstar, and carried the reputation of someone focused only on basketball greatness. Seeing his name linked to police custody felt unreal. Within minutes, the story spread everywhere. On phones, on timelines, in group chats. Everyone was asking the same question: what really happened? How did one of the NBA's biggest names end up in this situation? For many fans, this wasn't just another celebrity headline that would disappear in a day. It felt heavier than that. It felt like the beginning of something bigger, something uncertain, something that could change the way people looked at James Harden forever. And as the details slowly began to emerge, one thing became clear. This was no ordinary morning in the world of basketball. Basketball fans woke up to the shocking news that James Harden had been taken into custody by the Houston Police Department. But what could have led to his arrest? Could he have been falsely accused, or was he actually found with something that placed him under suspicion? If so, what exactly was he allegedly caught with? Let's uncover the details. The traffic stop that changed the conversation. According to early reports, the situation began in a way that seemed almost ordinary at first. Officers in Houston allegedly stopped James Harden's vehicle after what was described as a routine traffic violation. On the surface, it sounded like the kind of minor incident that happens every day on busy city roads, something that would normally be resolved quickly and quietly. But as more details were shared, the story began to take a more serious turn. Authorities later claimed that during the stop they discovered a handgun inside the vehicle. What made the situation even more concerning, according to the reports, was that the weapon was allegedly in plain view, rather than being properly secured in a holster or stored safely. This detail quickly became the center of attention as news of the incident spread. Following these claims, Harden was reportedly charged with a misdemeanor count of unlawful carrying of a weapon. While a misdemeanor is not the most severe category in the legal system, The fact that it involved a high-profile NBA superstar made the situation feel much bigger than a simple traffic stop. Almost instantly, the entire conversation around Harden shifted. What should have been just another quiet off-season for a veteran player turned into a nationwide topic of discussion. Instead of talking about training camps, team chemistry, or his next move in the league, fans and analysts were suddenly focused on court records, police reports, and legal outcomes. Social media platforms lit up within minutes. Clips, screenshots, and headlines were shared again and again, each one adding to the confusion and curiosity surrounding the situation. People who had followed Harden for years found themselves refreshing their feeds, trying to understand what exactly had happened and why. Even longtime supporters who had seen him rise from a promising young player into an MVP and one of the league's most dominant scorers struggled to make sense of the sudden change in tone. The image of Harden that many people had carried for over a decade, focused, competitive, and almost untouchable on the court, did not seem to match the headlines now attached to his name. In moments like this, the line between fame and scrutiny becomes very thin. One incident, one report, one claim can shift the entire conversation around a public figure. And for James Harden, this moment was no different. What began as a routine stop on a Houston street had now grown into a story the entire sports world was watching closely, waiting for answers that had not yet fully come. Harden was reportedly stopped for a traffic violation, only to have a handgun allegedly discovered in his vehicle, which led to his arrest. But could he legally justify the possession of the weapon? If not, what comes next after the arrest? And what legal proceedings now await James Harden? Now, let's explore the uncertain future surrounding his shocking arrest. Released on bond, but not on peace. After spending a brief period in custody, Harden was later released on bond. This meant he was allowed to return home while the legal process continued, but the situation was far from over. According to reports, his release came with strict conditions that he would need to follow carefully. These included limitations related to firearms, along with requirements to obey all court instructions while the case moved forward. Even after James Harden was released from custody, the pressure surrounding the situation did not ease. Instead, it continued to grow stronger with each passing day. Every small detail suddenly mattered, and every new update quickly turned into breaking news. At the center of it all was an upcoming court appearance, now seen as one of the most closely watched and talked about moments of his entire career, drawing attention from fans, media, and critics alike. Fans, analysts, and media outlets all began to focus on the same question: what happens next? For supporters of Harden, there was a strong call for calm. Many reminded the public that an arrest is not the same as a conviction, and that everyone deserves the right to due process. They urged people not to rush to judgment, especially when the full facts had not yet been revealed. At the same time, critics viewed the situation differently. Some argued that public figures like Harden carry a heavier responsibility because they influence younger fans and the global attention they receive. To them, even allegations involving a superstar cannot be taken lightly, no matter how the case eventually turns out. This split in opinion only added more tension to an already explosive story. It turned what might have been a simple legal matter into a global debate about fame, responsibility, and consequences. Despite the different opinions, most people agreed on one thing: this moment felt different. It wasn't just about legal papers or court schedules anymore. It was about something deeper: the image of James Harden himself, and how this situation suddenly challenged the way fans had always seen him. For more than a decade, fans knew him as a confident, composed, and dominant presence on the basketball court. He played with ease, controlling games even under intense pressure and bright lights. But today, that once familiar image is being questioned in a way it never has been before, forcing people to rethink the story they thought they already understood about him entirely once again. And as the legal process continued quietly in the background, one question lingered in the minds of many. Was this just another chapter in his long career, or the beginning of a completely different story? Beyond James Harden being released under strict conditions, including restrictions involving firearms and compliance with court orders, What kind of childhood did he experience? Could growing up in a tough environment have influenced how he viewed carrying a weapon as protection rather than aggression? And how did his mother guide him through those dangers? Let's find out. From the streets of Compton to a lifeline. Long before the bright lights of the NBA, before the fame, the MVP awards, and the packed arenas chanting his name, James Harden's story began in a very different world. It did not start with luxury or comfort. It started in Compton, California, a place known for its struggles, its pressure, and the difficult reality many young people had to face every single day. Growing up in that environment was not easy. The streets around him were often linked with violence, crime, and choices that could easily pull young lives in the wrong direction. For many children in that community, dreams of becoming a professional athlete felt distant, almost impossible. Survival often came first, and distractions were everywhere. Harden later spoke honestly about those years, admitting that staying focused as a young boy was not always simple. Like many kids around him, he saw the challenges of his environment up close. There were moments where the wrong path could have easily become the easiest path. But something in his life kept pulling him in another direction. That something was his mother, Monja Willis. She played one of the most important roles in shaping the man he would become. From the beginning, she refused to let the environment around them decide her son's future. Instead of accepting the limits of their surroundings, she believed there was something greater waiting for him beyond the streets. She encouraged her children to turn toward sports, not just as a pastime, but as a way out and a way forward. In her eyes, discipline, structure, and focus were not just values. They were protection. Protection from the pressures and dangers that could easily trap young people in cycles they never escape from. She made sacrifices that many people never saw, driving him to practices, staying involved in his development, and constantly reminding him to stay focused, even when distractions were everywhere. But more than anything, she taught him something deeper than basketball skills. She taught him character. She reminded him that honesty, discipline, and effort mattered far more than appearances or short-term success. Little by little, basketball began to change from something casual into something powerful. It was no longer just a game played after school or a way to pass the time with friends. It became structured. It became a direction. It became a purpose. And eventually, it became something even more important. For James Harden, basketball was not just a hobby anymore. It became a lifeline that carried him away from the streets of Compton and toward a future that once seemed out of reach. Harden's mother played a vital role in protecting him from the negative influences around him and teaching him the discipline to stay focused on sports. But how far did those lessons take him? Did the foundation she built lead him to NBA greatness? Or was his rise simply a matter of luck and talent? Let's find out. The rise of a basketball phenomenon. That lifeline called basketball carried James Harden much farther than anyone in his early life could have ever imagined. What started as a way to stay focused and avoid the wrong path slowly turned into something much bigger, something that would change the direction of his entire life. At Artesia High School in California, Harden began to stand out in a way that was hard to ignore. He wasn't just another good player on the team. He was becoming one of the best young talents in the country. His skill, patience, and control on the court made him different. Scouts and fans started to notice, and soon his name began to spread beyond his local community. From there, he moved to Arizona State University, where his game continued to grow. Each match showed more confidence, more control, and more ability to handle pressure. He wasn't just playing anymore, he was building a reputation. By the time he finished his college run, it was clear he was ready for the next level. In 2009, that moment arrived. James Harden was selected as the third overall pick in the NBA draft. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one that placed him among the most promising young players in professional basketball. His early years with the Oklahoma City Thunder introduced him to the world stage. Playing alongside other rising stars, fans quickly saw what he could do. He could change the flow of a game in an instant, whether by scoring, creating plays, or controlling the pace when it mattered most. But everything truly changed when he was traded to the Houston Rockets. In Houston, Harden was no longer just a young talent learning the game. He became the center of everything. The team depended on him, and he responded in a way few players ever do. Season after season, he delivered unforgettable performances that placed him at the top of the league. He won scoring titles, made repeated All-Star appearances, and eventually reached the highest individual honor in basketball, the Most Valuable Player Award. His style of play became iconic, especially his signature step-back move, which many players around the world tried to copy. Night after night, he didn't just win games. He shaped how the game was played. His influence stretched beyond highlights and statistics. Coaches studied him, young players copied him, and fans admired him. James Harden was no longer just a successful player. He had become one of the defining faces of modern basketball, a name that helped shape an entire era of the NBA. James Harden's exceptional performances made him one of the NBA's most talked-about stars. But was the conversation about him limited to what he did on the court? Or did it extend beyond the game? If so, what off-court habits kept people talking about him? And could those habits have contributed to the events surrounding his arrest? Let's uncover the details. The lifestyle that always turned heads. Even at the height of his greatness, when James Harden was breaking records and carrying teams on his back, another side of his life often followed him away from the court. It wasn't about his scoring or highlights, but the off-court lifestyle he was rumored to enjoy, which kept people talking beyond basketball at the center of constant public attention and ongoing public discussion. Over the years, stories began to circulate about high-end parties, private celebrity gatherings, luxury clubs, and late-night appearances in different cities. These moments slowly became part of his public image, almost as much as his step-back three-pointer. For some fans, it added to his larger-than-life personality. For others, it raised questions about discipline and focus. During the coronavirus era, those conversations grew even louder. While the league introduced strict health protocols and teams were expected to follow tight rules, Harden was reportedly seen at high-profile social events. The images and reports quickly spread online, leading to criticism from fans, analysts, and even some voices within the sport. Many felt that a player of his status should have been more careful, especially during such a sensitive time for the league. Inside the basketball world, however, the conversation was more complicated. Team executives, coaches, and insiders often described Harden's nightlife reputation as legendary. It was well known, widely talked about, and yet rarely questioned when it came to his actual performance on the court. And that was what made him so unique. Because no matter what was happening off the court, when game night arrived, James Harden always seemed to switch into another version of himself. The distractions disappeared, the noise faded, and what remained was a player capable of taking complete control of a game. He would step onto the court after nights in the spotlight and still deliver performances that left fans speechless. Big scoring nights, game-winning moments, plays that reminded everyone why he was considered one of the most gifted offensive players in the league. Time and time again, he answered criticism not with words, but with points, assists, and wins. For years, many people accepted this as part of who James Harden was, a superstar who lived boldly off the court, yet remained unstoppable on it. A player who seemed to exist between two worlds, but never allowed one to destroy the other. But now, with new headlines and unexpected reports emerging, that long-accepted balance is being questioned in a way it never was before. And for the first time in a long time, the conversation around James Harden is no longer just about basketball greatness. James Harden's off-court lifestyle often attracted attention, with some insiders even describing his habits as legendary in a negative sense. But where could this rugged lifestyle eventually lead him? Could the challenges now facing him overshadow the achievements that defined his career? Now, let's dive into the fall that nobody predicted. From MVP greatness to uncertain headlines, James Harden was seen as a basketball genius, an MVP and Olympic gold medalist, a player who could break down defenses with ease and control the pace of a game like few others in history. His step-back shot became one of the most feared moves in the league. Night after night, he delivered performances that placed him among the greatest offensive talents the sport has ever seen. Because of this, the public saw him over many years as a symbol of greatness, control, and quiet confidence. Even when criticism arose about his playing style or lifestyle, it never truly changed the reality that he remained one of basketball's most productive and dominant forces, consistently delivering elite performances and proving his value at the highest level of the game over time in the league today. That is why the recent reports and arrest headlines feel so difficult for many fans to process. It is not just about the legal situation itself, it is about the identity of the person involved. Seeing a player who has spent most of his career staying focused and avoiding major distractions suddenly linked to police custody and legal allegations is deeply shocking.
James Harden was arrested downtown early Saturday after police spotted a handgun sitting in his car's cup holder during a traffic stop.
It is difficult for fans to process because it does not match the image they have built over the years. For many people, it feels like two completely different versions of the same person suddenly crashing into each other at once. On one side, fans remember James Harden as the superstar MVP who could dominate any game and turn it around single-handedly. On the other side, there are now troubling headlines filled with arrest reports, legal questions, and growing uncertainty about his future. That clash between reputation and reality is what makes the situation so unsettling for fans around the world. It forces people to rethink the image they once believed was solid and unchanging. It also leads to a much deeper and more uncomfortable question, one that goes beyond basketball. Can a career filled with awards, records, and unforgettable moments remain untouched when controversy enters the story? Or does a single moment, no matter how small or temporary it may be, have the power to shift how a legacy is remembered? These are the questions now surrounding James Harden. And unlike the games he once controlled with ease, there are no quick answers here. No highlight play can settle it, and no final buzzer will bring clarity. Only time, reflection, and unfolding events will decide the truth. Only time will reveal how this chapter truly fits into the story of his career. James Harden's arrest and the upcoming court hearing challenge his accomplished career. But what legacy could this controversy disrupt? And could it overshadow the lifelong achievements of James Harden? Now, let's explore how his legacy now stands at a crossroads between unforgettable brilliance and a moment the world cannot ignore. The legacy hanging in the balance. James Harden's achievements in basketball are still remarkable and widely respected across the world of sport. Over many years in the NBA, he built a career defined by skill, creativity, and consistency at the highest level. He earned recognition as one of the greatest shooting guards the game has ever seen.
James is the fourth greatest shooting guard in all of NBA history, in my opinion. And I think James Harden is on the Mount Rushmore for shooting guards.
Standing alongside legends who shaped different eras of basketball. His trophy cabinet reflects that excellence, filled with scoring titles, all-star selections, and major individual honors, which confirm his place among elite athletes. He also secured a place on the NBA's 75th anniversary team, an honor reserved only for the most influential players in league history. This recognition was not just about numbers, but about impact. Harden changed the way offense is played in modern basketball. His signature step-back shot became one of the most copied moves in the league, and his ability to create points under pressure forced defenders and coaches to rethink their strategies. Young players around the world studied his game, trying to understand how he could control tempo, space, and scoring with such ease. However, legacy in sports is never shaped by talent alone. Public memory is often complex and shaped by both achievements and moments of controversy. Over time, these two sides of a career can merge in fans' minds, creating a more complex picture than statistics alone can show. For many supporters, James Harden's story will always be defined by his greatness on the court. They will remember the MVP season, the unforgettable scoring runs, and the nights when he seemed impossible to stop. To them, recent headlines may eventually fade, becoming only a small and temporary chapter in a long Hall of Fame career. For others, the story may feel different. Even a single moment outside the game can influence how people view an athlete's entire journey. It can add questions, reshape opinions, and change the emotional weight attached to past achievements. This is what makes Harden's situation so uncertain in the eyes of the public. His legacy is no longer a simple story of success. It is now a story still being interpreted, still being debated, and still being written in real time. The final verdict on how James Harden will ultimately be remembered has not yet been decided. Until time and perspective settle the emotions surrounding his career, fans, analysts, and future generations will continue to debate what matters most: the brilliance he displayed on the court, or the controversies that briefly interrupted his journey, leaving his legacy suspended between admiration, doubt, and history itself, forever unresolved. James Harden's achievements are indeed remarkable. However, the upcoming court hearing and final verdict may influence how people view him. But could the outcome become just a temporary setback? Or will people begin to focus more on this complicated chapter than on his accomplishments? Now, let's uncover the shocking off-season twist that could redefine James Harden's career. Between legacy and uncertainty. At this moment, James Harden still stands as one of the most accomplished and respected players of his generation. His career achievements remain intact, built over years of consistency, hard work, and elite performance at the highest level of basketball. However, the legal process tied to recent allegations is still ongoing, and the outcome has not yet been reached. This mix of greatness and uncertainty is what makes the situation so powerful and so widely discussed. Because now, the conversation around James Harden is no longer only about basketball. It has expanded into something bigger, where his legacy, reputation, and future all sit in the same space. Fans are no longer just talking about his highlights or his performances. They are also asking what this moment could mean for the story of his life and career. Naturally, opinions are divided. Some believe this will end up being nothing more than a temporary setback in an otherwise extraordinary journey. In sports, history is full of athletes who faced controversy, pressure, or public criticism only to return stronger and continue their careers. From this point of view, Harden's current situation may eventually fade with time, becoming just another short chapter in a long and successful story. Supporters of this idea believe that when the dust settles, people will remember what truly defined him. They will recall the step-back three-pointers that changed how basketball is played, the MVP-level seasons where he dominated the league, the scoring explosions that seemed almost impossible, and the playoff moments where he carried entire offenses on his back. But not everyone sees it that way. For others, this moment may carry a longer impact. Even if Harden continues playing, and even if he returns to top form, some argue that certain events leave lasting marks on how a player is remembered. They believe legacy is shaped not only by greatness, but also by controversy, timing, and public perception. That is where the uncertainty begins. Because in sports, legacies are never simple or fixed. They evolve, shaped by both achievements and unexpected moments that change the conversation. So now, James Harden's story sits in a fragile and uncertain place. It is no longer just about what he has done on the court, but also about how this current chapter will be understood in the future. What began as what seemed like a normal offseason for a veteran superstar has now become a global headline that shocked the entire sports world. A story that spread quickly, sparked debate, and left fans everywhere searching for clarity. And as the situation continues to unfold, one question remains. Is this simply another challenge for a player who has already overcome so much in his career? Or is it the beginning of a turning point that could redefine how one of basketball's most fascinating stars is remembered forever? For now, there is no clear answer. Only time will decide how this chapter truly fits into his legacy. So, what do you think about the controversy surrounding James Harden? Could it overshadow his lifetime achievements? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.